In Afghanistan, 4 strong earthquakes were caused by a mysterious and unusual domino effect. Scientists have been astounded by a series of 4 earthquakes with 6.3 magnitude that occurred back to back in less than a week. There is no way to know if the most recent domino will bring down another one. Afghanistan's Herat province had a magnitude 6.3 earthquake on October 7 at 11:11 a.m. local time. An earthquake ruptured a fault near the extreme western extremity of the Hindu Kush mountain range, destroying the large city of Herat and leveling a number of rural settlements. Following that, another earthquake with a magnitude of 6.3 occurred in just 23 minutes. A second earthquake of the same magnitude, measuring 6.3, struck the same area on October 11, just 4 days after the first one, wreaking extra havoc on the already traumatized population as bodies were still being pulled from the rubble. A fourth earthquake of magnitude 6.3 struck the region on October 15 after the death toll had risen to around 3,000. Many experts were taken aback by the consecutive series of 4 earthquakes of comparable strength that occurred in just over a week. According to Judith Hubbard, an earthquake scientist at Cornell University, I was startled and dismayed to see the initial doublet. When compared to the third earthquake, the fourth was much more unexpected. What may have caused this improbable seismic cascade has been hotly debated by scientists. The episodes are challenging to examine due to a lack of nearby seismometers, but one theory is already gathering acceptance. According to Harold Tobin, the director of the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network at the University of Washington, the earthquakes were most likely caused by a domino effect. Some of the stress from the geologic fault that slipped when the first earthquake occurred on October 7 was transferred to another fault that was already under stress. It then ruptured as a result of that shortly after, and this cycle repeated twice more. There are many places in the world where this type of stress transfer occurs, but Tobin notes that in the case of these earthquakes, what's unusual is that they have all been around the same magnitude and occurred in a very short period of time. These kinds of earthquake sequences are rare, which makes it difficult to comprehend them. Even though scientists are still perplexed by this most recent sequence, they warn that it may not yet be finished because new quakes in the upcoming days, weeks, or months remain a frightening potential. At this point, it is impossible to predict if the most recent domino will lead to the collapse of another. The relentless motions of the Arabian, Eurasian, and Indian tectonic plates have created the multi-layered labyrinth of faults that traverse much of Afghanistan, creating potential rupture sites. This practically implies that the nation experiences a lot of earthquakes, some of which are deadly. Last summer, a magnitude 6.1 earthquake on the country's border with Pakistan claimed the lives of over 1,000 people. A pair of significant earthquakes in Afghanistan would typically not be considered remarkable. However, this pair stood out as odd right away. The first 2 earthquakes' location was rather unexpected, according to earthquake expert Wendy Bohan, because this region of Afghanistan is far less seismically active than the eastern region. However, the corresponding magnitudes caught the attention of scientists the most. I already thought that this was a fairly unusual sequence when the first 2 very similar magnitude 6.3 earthquakes occurred, says Jascha Pollitt, a seismologist and professor emeritus at California State Polytechnic University Pomona. I was shocked when the sequence later generated a quadruplet of these events. This is not the way earthquakes typically operate. A main shock, a relatively major fault rupture, is usually followed by numerous lesser aftershocks, which become less frequent over time. There is a chance that the area will experience another earthquake of a comparable size, but the likelihood that it will do so within a week after the main shock is just approximately 5%. The earthquake pair on October 7 defied such probabilities. It was a doublet, which occurs when 2 separate earthquakes of comparable or equal size strike within a brief period of time on the same or nearby fault zones. Each has its own aftershock pattern, and because they are close together, it is believed that they are connected by an underlying tectonic or seismic mechanism. Doublets are not unusual in any significant way. The same day, Papua New Guinea coincidentally experienced a doublet. There were 2 earthquakes in February, one each in Turkey and Syria. Triplets to exist, although being less common. According to Edwin Nissen, an earthquake scientist at the University of Victoria in Canada, 3 magnitude 6 earthquakes of varying magnitude occurred in central Iran over the course of around 2 weeks in December 2017. However, a quadruplet, especially one of 4 that are very close to identical magnitude, is certainly a very rare and unlikely pattern, claims Tobin. In the Philippines in 2019, there was a quadruplet, according to Hubbard, where earthquakes with magnitudes of 6.4, 6.6, 6.5, and 6.8 rocked Mindanao Island between October and December. However, the equal magnitude and swift quadruplet in Afghanistan is especially puzzling. What then was the cause? The fact that there were 4 moderately strong earthquakes rather than one exceptionally powerful quake is likely owing to the mountainous faults in the area's fragmented structure, which are broken up by gaps, stepovers, or bends, according to Nissen. These segment limits are able to prevent earthquakes from rupturing across a broad fault plane, which is necessary to produce an earthquake with a very large magnitude. The 4 earthquakes were all triggered by thrust faulting, in which one crustal wedge jolts over another, according to seismic data. However, due to a lack of data, the precise defect or faults in question have not yet been found. Despite this uncertainty, the 4 earthquakes' primary cause is probably the movement of stress across the crust. According to Bohan, some neighboring regions are subjected to increased stress following an earthquake, increasing the likelihood of earthquakes on close faults. Each subsequent earthquake has an epicenter that is a little to the east of the one before it. This suggests that there may be many faults close together, or that there are multiple fractured parts of a single lengthy fault. According to Bohan, it's possible that these faults are like blocks that are built on top of one another, and when one moves, the others are more likely to follow. According to Pollitt, this hypothesis does not, however, fully account for why these earthquakes had similar magnitudes. Quakes in a quadruplet, triplet, or doublet, however, are not have to be a specific size. This is dependent upon the particular characteristics of each fault, including its dimensions and behaviors. The fact that these 4 earthquakes had the same magnitude, then, is probably coincidence, claims Hubbard. This initial analysis has not been accepted by everyone. Geophysicist Zachary Ross of the California Institute of Technology asserts it doesn't have to be a domino effect. Instead, it might be what seismologists refer to as a swarm, a collection of tremors that all occur at roughly the same time and place, but none of which is a separate main shock. Ross views Afghanistan's seismic sequence as fairly normal for earthquake swarms, in which we often see many earthquakes with similar magnitudes. But he points out that swarms with magnitudes greater than 6 are hardly typical. The fact that molten rock or extremely hot fluids traveling through the crust are frequently cited as the origin of swarms is another problem. However, this region of Afghanistan is not known for having this kind of geologic activity. Most scientists support the domino effect theory, and as they acquire more information, they will begin to develop a deeper understanding of the underlying geologic reason. But one thing is obviously obvious. This area was totally unprepared for any one of the quadruplets earthquakes. The most seriously impacted distant communities are clusters of unreinforced mud, brick, and timber structures, the kind that collapse in an instant during a big earthquake. Unfortunately, women and children made up the majority of the victims, as they were more likely to be inside when the earthquakes occurred. The Taliban have made it more difficult for women to move around freely in public places, which has increased the discrepancy in casualties. Earthquakes occur when the planet's crust moves, but disasters typically have both natural and human causes. Nothing special about this one though. You can suggest topics you want to see next in the comment section below. Please subscribe to Weather Collapse if you want to know more, and be updated on the latest news about natural calamities or disasters happening all over the world, and don't forget to like today's video. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.